Hi, my name is Megan Edwards of Focus Communications, and today we're getting an update from FireFox Gold, which trades on the Toronto Venture Stock Exchange under the symbol FFOX. And joining me once again is FireFox's chairman, Patrick Highsmith. Thank you very much for joining us today, Patrick.
Thank you, Megan. It's good to be here to nerd out a little bit on this FireFox news.
Yes, let's nerd out. Let's start. So today I wanted to discuss yesterday's FireFox news release where the company announced significant coarse gold at the east target at Mustajärvi. Now, this is a screen fire assay from a previously reported hole. So for our listeners, could you discuss the results from the new assays and perhaps why exactly the company chose to conduct this analysis?
Absolutely. We've extracted a couple of figures from the news release here, Megan. So I'll just click through a couple and let folks know where we're talking about. You can see in the center of this slide, there's the Mustajärvi project there in the middle of the central Lapland greenstone belt. We've been drilling a lot of gold there, so followers of us have probably been aware of Mustajärvi for some time. But as you point out, this was really a follow-up to a previously announced result, which was pretty spectacular, the best intercept we've drilled yet on the Mustajärvi project. It was almost 14 meters that ran 14.39 grams per ton. This intercept was less than 20 meters below surface. It was announced in July. And we already had QC checks in place on this, Megan. We knew the results had checked out fine from a quality point of view, but our team's gone a little bit above and beyond, and we have some extra measures in place when we drill high grade at Mustajärvi. So you can see, if I just click ahead a little bit, I'll start talking about the whys of all this thing. But so basically, we already had over limit assays in place, which meaning we had some high grade gold. You can see there a column with a bunch of greater than 10 grams per ton results. And so those had already been reassayed in triplicate, and they were, again, pretty consistent. So the quality control looked good. We had good repeatability, and we announced those results in July. We pushed that result out, that news release. But again, because we know we're drilling high grade here, sometimes we run a little extra measure of care, and we sent those 8 high grade samples for what's called a screen fire assay procedure. Now, this is the most definitive way to use fire assay to get total gold. We're going to go through that, I'm sure, as we discuss this some. And you can see, once again, the numbers there agreed pretty well, except for one big discrepancy. You can see one of those samples came back with 439 grams per ton. It had been assaying around 18 grams per ton in the more conventional procedures. And so that's a great result. It means that there's a discrete piece of gold in there that we had not previously picked up. So that's probably a piece of coarse gold in the rock, Megan. When the sample was crushed the first time, they just didn't sort of happen to grab that piece with the coarse gold in it, and so they missed it. And then the next time we said, go back and do a screen fire, take another 1,000 grams of material. This time when they dumped that bag into the hopper, the piece with the coarse gold fell in there, and it ended up in the assay. And so that tells you that when you get a little piece of nugget gold like that, it really could occur anywhere in one of these deposits. There's sort of a random element to it. But we wanted to put that result out and show people just how consistent these results are. But every now and then you get a flyer.
And let's talk about coarse gold here, as it's not something we've discussed at FireFox's projects. What exactly is it? And perhaps could you touch on why does it form?
Yeah, look, gold usually occurs in nature as, gold. Okay, so it's not chemically bonded to other elements usually. It doesn't usually form minerals, except maybe with silver. We call that electrum. So it's little discrete pieces of gold. That's one of the reasons we call it a noble metal, okay? But it does, and it can, and it does form some minerals. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But most of the time, it's sort of pure gold or electrum. And that means a couple things. First of all, it means it's probably random. It precipitates out of hydrothermal fluids somewhere in those rocks. We can't predict where. And when it's in that pure form, what else do we know about gold? It's malleable, okay? It's ductile, so it's soft. So if you try to grind it up, it doesn't grind up very well. It smears, it rolls, it flattens out. And that means that it doesn't get distributed evenly throughout a sample. That's why we care about it, is because we're usually crushing that material up in hopes of mixing it all up and everything. So when it comes to sampling, If it's in little rolls or balls or wires, then it won't be distributed throughout the sample. There'll be little nuggets in there, and we call that the nugget effect. Somewhere in all that rock, there's little bits of gold. Many times they're super tiny and they mix up very nicely and it's not a problem. Sometimes they're more coarse. It doesn't mix up and it can be a problem.
Right. Absolutely. So I guess the obvious question is, why is it that this coarse gold was missed in previous assays?
Exactly. I mean, and as you can see here, we knew this mineral, this table is very illustrative. This is every assay we did on these samples. So when folks look at this, you can see there's no waste in this interval. I mean, even in the first pass assays in that column right there, every single sample there is highly mineralized. We were very comfortable. This was a good solid interval of mineralization. So we didn't miss anything. We knew it was good gold. We knew it was high grade gold because we saw all those greater than 10s. However, these nuggets, by definition, are not evenly distributed. Hence, sometimes we find them in a sample and sometimes we don't. That happens in the field too. Where did you cut the drill core? Maybe it's in one half of the drill core, but not in the other. So we've designed our sampling methods in the field over the years of this industry with lots of textbooks and technical articles on this. We've designed sample preparation in the lab. The analytical procedures in the lab are designed to homogenize that sample as best we can. But every now and then, these little nuggets still surprise us. And this is why, at FireFox, we regularly run screen fire assays at Mustajärvi. When we see an interval like that, we say, well, we didn't see visible gold. As we mentioned in the news release, we have seen it a few times here, but not in this case. But, you know, there could be some really high grade in there. We better run screen fires as an extra precaution. We'd like to know as accurately as possible what the grade of this material is. And in this case, we confirmed a highly mineralized interval is very consistent. However, there are discrete nuggets in there, and sometimes those are nice, high, whopping numbers like those.
Mm-hmm. So with the table of results, most of the gold assays seem to be consistent with previously reported results. And we can see that even the triplicate assays were mostly in close agreement. But in the release, you talk about a lot of coarse gold being random and not reproducible. So what am I missing?
Yeah, and that's why we're spending a few minutes talking about it, quite frankly. It's hard to write this stuff in a news release so people can understand. So we literally put every assay in that table, Megan. So that's the first thing. And someone can look at that and go, wow, okay, definitely gold there, right? No chance of an error that every single one of those samples had gold in it. So that's the first thing. The gold is pretty reproducible at Mustajärvi until it's not, okay, because we hit a little nugget. And so last year we reported visible gold. It was super spectacular. We had photos of it in a news release. And those assays confirmed by a screen fire assay, by the way, that at that time we'd hit an interval, I think it was 94 grams over 1.35 meters. So narrow, but with coarse gold. And we used screen fire assays to confirm it before we even press released it. So sometimes we go straight to screen fire when we can see the gold. In this case, we didn't see the gold. We had lots of consistency here, so we released it as it was, and the gold is pretty reproducible, but this variability that we've been talking about can never be eliminated, Megan. In any gold program, sampling and drilling, you just can't eliminate the nugget effect, and the presence of these little discrete nuggets can really change the numbers because they may affect the statistics. So down the road, it's much better for us to do the careful work, run a lot of extra analyses, get screen fires done periodically. And then later, we'll talk about that, but later it'll get incorporated perhaps into a resource estimation. And the more we do here to understand how variable is the gold, it'll help us later.
So in the bigger picture, does it really matter that one assay came back so much higher than it did in the original assay?
Look, that's a great question. I mean, the real importance, as I was just alluding to this sort of information, is that it tells us that, and our qualified persons down the track, about the statistics of the gold. So in other words, if this bonanza grade stuff is out there, these little nuggets, we need to be aware of it because any given assay could come back much higher than we expect. We could hit one of these on a first time sample as well, not just in a repeat screen fire. So with all that randomness, we collect these data over time so that when the QP comes in later to do a resource calculation, we can hand that person a complete database which has all these, how many times did we find coarse gold? How variable was it? When you hit a flyer like this, how many milligrams of coarse gold were in that sample? In this case, we know it was almost half a gram, almost 500 milligrams of gold was caught by the screen fire procedure. So it helps you build a population so that later the QP might end up saying, look, every now and then you get these super high grades at Mustajärvi, and to more accurately do the statistical modeling, maybe they put a cap. Maybe that they say nothing higher than 100 grams per ton, just so we don't overestimate the likelihood of hitting one of these nuggets. So this is all the science and engineering that comes later as we estimate a resource. Remember, deposits are different. Some of them are lower grade or moderate grade, and they tend to be kind of boring and consistent. Oh, it's 1 to 3 grams. We don't have much high grade. Here at Mustajärvi, we know we have high grade. We know we have visible and coarse gold. So we've got to be really attentive throughout to characterize that properly, because the most important part, Megan, is one day Mustajärvi might be getting mined. And if we crush this rock up, we blasted it, we loaded it into a truck and hauled it off to the mill, those nuggets are along for the ride, and they'll be coming out in that processing plant. So we want to account for them. We want to know about how many nuggets are out there. After all, the more nuggets, the better, obviously. We just can't quantify them necessarily without doing a bunch of this sort of statistical mumbo jumbo in the meantime.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you.